Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and ruh-roh! Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage. It's great to have you here. It's great to be here on this night, watching the fifth episode of a show that, gosh, when you think about, well, we'll talk about it later, but when you think about the vast span of time that we have crossed to see some of these characters again, it's both exciting and a little dismaying at the same time. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's talk about the news of the world of Trek. Not a ton of news in the world of Trek, to be totally honest with you. Been a little quiet, but there is one big story from the world of entertainment, and that is the fact that we have a Star Trek star who has won the Best Actress Oscar at the Academy Awards, and that is Michelle Yeoh. So congratulations to Michelle Yeoh, and my condolences to the producers of Section 31, which, I mean, there's just no way we can get that now, right? It's just not going to happen now, but it's really incredible.
Is also amazing. And I did immediately explain, I told my friends about the Section 31 show when we saw Michelle win. I was like, no way, they're getting her now.
Yeah, right.
She's above and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I'm positive that she wants to do it, but I mean, we've talked in the past about the problems getting Star Trek 4 going just because of money, and it's a concern. There's a threshold that seems like Paramount doesn't really want to go over, and I understand that. But just if you're Michelle Yeoh's agent at this point, it's like, well, she's an Oscar winner, so there's a new ceiling that we don't.
It's also even when they cast Michelle in Discovery, it was already like, oh my god, they got Michelle.
It was a get.
Yeoh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was already like, oh
100%.
My god.
Yeah.
And now she's just like, with everything ever, she's a shot. Yeah.
And you've seen the movie, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you like it?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. It was a fantastic night, and it was really interesting to see so many, just the sort of confluence of different awards that were given out and things that they were honoring. Obviously, that film, swept so many things. Seeing somebody like Jamie Lee Curtis get, an Oscar after so many years in Hollywood. Seeing Brendan Fraser, do the same. It just seemed like they were picking. Yeah, it seemed like they were just like cashing, or paying off a lot of accounts here, like kind of giving people not only that what the audience wants, but really like, just showing appreciation and not just, I mean, he was good, but like, oh yeah, Joaquin Phoenix, here's your Oscar, we get it, you're a good actor. Like they were really just like selling accounts with a lot of different stars, and I thought that was really neat to see. It was a big night.
Yeah, I think they also were like, we gotta have a really good, wholesome show this year.
Yeah, right. How do we, avoid mistakes
like,
of years past?
Bad press. We gotta have.
Yeah.
And I saw people saying like when they saw Harrison Ford come out to present that they knew that Everything Everywhere had won.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, that was
Oh, good. Of course, because yeah.
Because why else would you have Harrison presenting, and why else would he agree? To be honest.
Yeah. Come in and just swoop in at that moment. Yeah. And from what I read, like the viewership was up a high percentage from what it was in numbers of years past. So maybe this will be the start of something. They're going to listen to the internet now. Who knows what will be the next best picture.
I mean, I feel like you have to take any big award like that. You have to take with a grain of salt, but it's also it's just too fun to watch, especially if you've seen the movies. I hadn't seen a lot of the movies that were nominated this year, but it's just fun. It's a good time. I feel like when I tell people that I'm watching the Oscars, they're like, really? Do you care about that? As a film
really?
major, a film student, do you care about that? And I'm like, yes and no,
Yeah.
Like, you can't deny it's a huge award, but it's also it's just fun to watch.
Yeah,
so
and it's
dressed up. I wish I was there getting dressed up,
Yeah, right. Well, there's the pomp and circumstance, and it's great to see, performers and actors that I really respect, be honored, even if the process is totally arbitrary and, doesn't really mean all that much, but to see them find that sort of satisfaction that you can get. I remember when I was an acting student, we watched the Oscars and the Tonys religiously. And I knew all the winners, and I knew who had, won in the past and the trends. And all these years later, I don't really care. But I do think that it's really great that Michelle Yeoh won, and everybody who won the acting awards won. And then, of course, the director and Best Picture. So, yeah, it's great. I got to watch that movie again. I've seen it twice, but I want to see it again.
I've only seen it once, and I knew, even when I watched it the first time, I was like, I knew I was going to watch it again. I feel like they're showing it at the Riverview, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Again,
okay.
Now that it's won a bunch of stuff, yeah.
Sure, yeah, have to check that out. I'm close to a cool theater now. This won't mean anything to people that don't live where I live, but we've moved recently. I'm in a new studio, and we're right next to a theater that shows like indie stuff and shows art house stuff, and they've got a Hitchcock festival coming up, which I'm pretty excited about. And then for some reason they're showing like Star Wars. They're going to show Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi this summer, which I'll go see them. If it's not the special edition, though, let's hope this is an old print. Get the old prints out. But so yeah,
Star Wars and not Episode 4.
Yeah, right. the original. I don't know if there's any of those are left, but
Rare.
Yeah, but anyway, enough about movies, because honestly, Star Trek-wise, there's nothing really to say. I saw another thing from Chris Pine again saying like, oh, I really want to do one. It's like, okay, Chris, we'll check out the D&D movie first. We'll see how we do with that. But let's talk about Star Trek TV. And we've just seen the 5th episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. It's an episode called Impostors, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, as always, a warning. We are setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners. So be warned, we're glad that you've decided to join us. But if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming, and there are definitely spoilers here tonight. The official synopsis for Impostors is, caught by Starfleet and facing court-martial, paranoia grows as Picard struggles to uncover whether a prodigal crewman from his past has returned as an ally or an enemy hell-bent on destroying them all. This episode is written by Cindy Appel and Chris Derrick. It was directed by Dan Liu. And the stardate, we have a stardate for tonight from Acting Captain Riker's log. It is 78186.03. And the one big fact about the episode that we have to talk about is that this is the first appearance of Ro Laren since the second to last episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, Preemptive Strike, which aired 29 years ago. Oh my God. I remember, kids gather around. I remember watching this episode on TV and being upset at the time for what they did to Ro Laren, but ultimately deciding that it was probably the right thing to do for her character. And we can talk tonight about what we see in this episode and if that's also a good move for her character. But great to see her again. Do you like Ro as a character?
Yeah, I don't have a super firm, like, memory of her, to be honest.
Sure.
Like, from Next Gen.
29 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I don't have, like, a super strong connection to her character. I mean, it's just like one of those things where I was like very faintly like, I know her.
Yeah.
But I really don't. I think I've said this before. Next Gen's the show that I've seen like the least amount of times.
Okay.
Out of all the Star Trek shows, so sometimes they pull something like this, and I'm like, I remember it, but I'm not quite like emotionally invested as I could be with other characters. Yeah.
So you're a good test case for this season then, for season 3, because this is really like, the TNG season 8.1 or whatever. This is really like the nostalgia tour. Is it working on you?
For the most part, I think today for sure, I was like, I wonder what it's like. Is anyone watching this show who hasn't seen Next Gen? Because if they are, like, there's no way. Because when she came on screen, I was like really struggling to place all of the context. You know?
Yeah, what I mean? Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's interesting because she's, kind of like the template for, Kira, the character of Kira, and also the Bajoran race in general. And there's a lot of stuff that they were kind of working out to the point where they bring up, the earring thing tonight. And Ro always wore hers on the left ear. And it wasn't until later that they kind of decided that the Bajorans were right to left instead of left to right, and they're usually one in the right ear. But they kept that continuity tonight with her, with her left ear being bare. But I think as a character, though, she's very much like Kira, and I guess the idea was that they wanted her to play Kira, or offered her an audition for that, and she had to do something else, and so we got Nana Visitor instead, which great. But yeah, it's interesting to see her come back, and it's interesting to see her come back in this specific way, and I think that, and I guess we're getting into it, right now, talking about the episode, but I was a little, I don't know, I think that they did their best to kind of paper over I keep kicking my desk, why this character who, literally left Starfleet in disgrace to fight against both Starfleet and the Cardassians, why would she come back? And a lot of things happen in 30 years, we can trace or not trace the path of a character. So it's like, it's not unbelievable, but the last time that we saw her was this, and they made it all about that, which I think you have to do. But I was like, nothing else happened. Like, what happened in her life? Like, she said, I went to jail, and then I was working for like the CIA or whatever. So it was a little weird to hear Picard suddenly be very angry with her and talk about her betraying her uniform, and like that's like a Cisco thing. Like, I would imagine that Picard was disappointed. We see that in that original episode, but I don't quite believe that he's been carrying this around like for 30 years, and now he sees her and they can kind of vent it on her. It makes up the action of the episode, but not being familiar with her, did you feel like that the animosity initially between them like came off in the right way?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by the right way. You know what I mean? Because
well,
like,
do you think it worked?
I mean, yeah. It just is like, and this show has done this to me before a little bit, where it's like testing my memory and like my knowledge. Where
Yeah,
I'm like, okay,
I'm sure.
I feel like
I'm sure that's true for a lot of viewers. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm back in like history class, and they're like, about the Tudor line, and I'm like, yes,
Yes.
I know about the Tudor line.
The Dominion War of the Roses. Yeah, I think I remember that.
I mean,
yeah.
how many episodes was she in of Next Gen?
She showed up in what, like season? Oh boy. 5, I think, or season 5, season 6, and then she showed up, intermittently. She was in the "We're All Little Kids" episode. She was in what's the one where they all lose their memories? Conundrum or something like that. She was in The Next Phase, where she and Geordi become ghosts. So she was in like a handful of episodes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I guess I feel like it makes sense, especially since Star Trek, we've had so many like one-off episodes. Like, what I keep thinking about? I keep thinking about that episode where like Worf has a son,
yeah,
and then he never, and it's like so emotionally wrenching, and he never comes back.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's totally fair. I think the reaction is totally fair. Picard's also like in a high stress situation where he like doesn't trust people.
Yeah.
And then to see someone who he did trust and then who broke that trust, like I totally get why he would be like, I don't trust you anymore, and you broke my heart because I trusted you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gone through a lot.
Yeah, he has, and I like the way that it then became. I think they were trying to accomplish a little too much. You don't want him to feel nothing, but I think what's more important to the plot is him leveraging his knowledge of her to figure out, if she's, one of the changelings or not. But they get both things across eventually. I read an interesting thing that Terry Matalas, the showrunner, talked with Collider.com, I think, and he was talking about season 3, and he said that initially the plan, and this makes a lot of sense when you think about it, initially the plan was to bring back the bugs from season 1, to bring back the conspiracy bugs, they go in their mouths. And they were going to be, the imposters. So it was going to be playing out that idea from the first season that they never really did anything with, where they had come back, they had replaced certain people in Starfleet. And apparently the hitch was that when the bugs take over, they kill the person. And so they're just like, working like a dead person, like the person inside is dead. And so he felt like they couldn't, maybe it's going to be Geordi's daughter, but we don't want Geordi's daughter to be dead, just duplicated. And I mean, they've already evolved the changelings. They could have said, I don't know, the bugs don't kill them or something. But so they scrapped that and thought, oh, we'll bring the changelings in instead. And I think that really fits. I mean, once you know that, you go, oh yeah, okay, I can totally see that. They've also brought forward that paranoia idea that we see used in DS9 with the changelings, where there's like one changeling on Earth in that two-part episode where they go back to visit Earth, and like everybody freaks out. And now there's apparently Rose like, there's a ton of these guys. We've had like a dozen different incidents. You don't know who's who, so we'll have to see if that's just good PR or if there really are like this many changelings. We were, I think you were schooling me because I wasn't sure last week if like Vatic it was a changeling or she just had like a changeling hand or something. And Terry Metalis pulled a Michael Chabon and he was talking to Collider or some other site and he's like, no, she is a changeling. I think all the bird people are changeling. He said all the foes that were fighting them were changelings. So we know that.
It's not a Peter Pettigrew hand situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no polyjuice potions, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. They're changelings are the major bad guy here. They're all over this, all over the show this season.
And okay, not to change the subject.
Go for it. Like changeling the subject.
I feel like we talk a lot about how Star Trek, especially recently, is teaching us to like distrust authority. And I felt like today I was watching it and I was like, again with the Starfleet's infiltrated like bit, like we don't know who's a changeling, it goes all the way to the top type bit, and it's like I don't know, I don't want to say like I'm so tired of this, I quit doing this, because I think it's a good lesson. Maybe it's, I don't know what that, maybe I'm like a yuppie. I think it's a really good lesson to always be suspicious of people who are in power over you, like I don't know, but
it's interesting because it is doing it, you're right, but it doesn't have anything to say about it, I don't think. They're just employed as a tropey villain. And there's a line in there where Seven, who is a person who has clawed back her humanity from the Borg and from what they did to her, and invaded her body sovereignty, put all these things in her, changed her, and she has this offhand line about like, oh, everybody has to go through this scanner where they see every part of you when you get into Starfleet, and every time you get on a ship or something like that. And it's like, I'm thinking about backscatter X-rays at the airport, and it's just like, it's just something that they've accepted, apparently. Now, I know that the writers didn't want it to seem that way, but when you wrote that line like that,
it's a post-Florida got lasered off world.
Yeah, exactly right. It comes off like, wow, you guys are really okay with that, and yet at the same time, they're still, running this idea of, because in the '60s it was like, authority's fine as long as it's like Kirk, as long as it's his authority. He doesn't like anybody above him. And then the '80s brought in that like kind of generalized distrust of authority, and that's just become part of Star Trek's DNA. But we are following characters who are in the military, right? And then Seven ends up in there, Rose back in Starfleet. In this episode, Picard's like, hey kid, why don't you join Starfleet? Like, I don't want every character on the show to become part of the military, and I don't think people we're questioning it, but I don't think people normally question it, because people who watch Star Trek, it's like, do you watch NCIS? Do you watch JAG? Do you watch SWAT or something? Do you watch shows where everybody's in the military? Like, and you want to do that? I don't think that Star Trek is very aware of how that seems. It's weird when they want to, like you said, run these authoritative, distrust authority plot lines all the time.
Yeah, I mean, the contrast, like, it's hard because I feel like in my head I never ever have thought until recently about Starfleet as like a militant organization, right? Yeah. It's like I don't know, science first, exploration first.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
All of that stuff, like, I don't know what, not charity's the wrong word, but just like improvement of life, we're gonna help you out,
right,
type thing.
Right.
But then, and I think it's more stark in the newer shows where it's like they're having a lot more of these fight scenes. They're doing a lot more of like, oh, we're fighting someone. It's not a 5-year mission and we're having one-offs and maybe we're gonna battle somebody. It's like they're fighting people you know?
Mm-hmm.
Not that that didn't happen in the shows before, but
Mm-hmm.
like, so it is funny to watch because it's like, you're right. I don't want to watch a show where everyone joins the military, but I also don't know, like, where's the line between what's a Star Trek show where, like, where Starfleet is like more absent. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like they're almost one and the same.
Yeah. I think that we'll always like the pew pew. I mean, that's just a thing. And other Star Trek is the only series, for the most part, that has any commitment to or any idea about not doing that all the time. And so, if they stop not doing that, if they start doing that all the time, who notices except for people like us, I guess. And it's still exciting, but it's hard to sell them as a scientific force when you're right, they're just shooting and blowing things up every week. And it reminds me of the fact that like nobody appreciated DS9 enough in its time, but it's like a trendsetter. It's like somebody who wears fashion or like music, somebody who's ahead of their time in music. Later on you'll see a million copies of that band or see people wearing the style that somebody was wearing before. And I feel like Star Trek is now trying to go, oh no, we're cool at DS9, so we're gonna have like war storylines and a lot of dark stuff and Dance with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight and all this stuff. But I don't think, like a lot of those bands, they don't know what made that work, for that band that they were inspired by. Um, and so you get the same kind of thing where it's like it's Star Trek blank. It's 10 episodes. There's going to be some fraught stuff. There's going to be, some fire. There's going to be some tension. We're going to bring some old characters back. And, I mean, it works for a lot of people. But, like, I'm like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing going to be? What are we going to move on to? That's one of the reasons I like Prodigy so much, because it's like, I've just never seen this before. It's just, 6 characters who are children, and they're discovering this new universe. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the nostalgia tour, you get what you get. Like, we are getting exactly what we ordered. We're more TNG. So I think for that it works great.
I also am starting to think that it's like the whole distrust of authority theme is maybe more of like a reflection of the times that we're living in,
Possibly.
and not necessarily like something they're doing on purpose, like
Yeah.
consciously being like having this overarching theme across those shows. And like maybe they are, but I think it's maybe a little bit more about like what we're experiencing now, at least like in America.
Yeah. I mean, Star Trek has always done that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just wonder if like what's something that we're like, well, AI. I guess we're all scared of Chat GPT, although they did that on Discovery already. Like what now that like Star Trek, because Star Trek changed sci-fi. I mean, allegorical sci-fi existed before Star Trek, but it really brought it to the mainstream. And like now, everybody who's doing sci-fi generally has some kind of metaphor or something in there. So like, how can not that Star Trek has to like up the stakes again, but maybe Star Trek is just taking a break and they're like, we just want to shoot people for a while. Like, not everything has to be a
Yeah,
big
we just want
statement
to
on
have
it.
a fun new phaser. We just want to have,
Yeah,
Crusher with the fun new phaser
yeah.
rifle. Yeah.
Strange New Worlds took a few swings at that, and as I commented when we talked about those episodes, sometimes it was like, is that the side you want to be on? That's what you want to
love
suggest?
Stranger Worlds.
Yeah,
I want them to come back.
yeah, they'll come back. Well, anyway, I want to talk about Jack because weird things are going on with Jack. Not to mention the fact that he's 20. The episode starts right on his
24?
eyes, and I knew that they were Jack's eyes, and I'm like, those are not the eyes of a 20-year-old.
He's seen too much.
Maybe
seen
he's
too
got
much.
progeria. Maybe that Crusher's trying to cure that. My son is aging too fast. Um, what do you? I feel like at this point, maybe this is something totally new, but they've brought so many elements, from TNG back and kind of tried to recontextualize them. This must be something that we have seen before, and I've been trying to rack my brain like what this is that's happening to him. Do you have any theories? What's your tinfoil hat
I mean,
theory?
today for a second, I was like, it's all become clear. It's not actually Jack. It's a changeling. How long has Jack been a changeling? But then I was
Mm.
like, no, that's not, because they were like, he was hurt. They were like up in his business. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, okay, so he's not something's wrong with him. that's maybe connected to the changelings.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a, like a Cisco Prophets type beat, just like something weird where he's not connected but he is, but like
He's the changeling emissary.
no.
Yeah, maybe there's a changeling inside him and is like trying to get him to do things and like get back to the collective or something. They had a specific scene where they showed that the changelings are a little different now. Like they've got parts inside and down to a very fine level they can appear to be human, and so maybe for that reason you can suffocate, if you have too much Bertelsmann gas, or you can bleed, like a normal person. I think that's still on the table. I'm just trying to figure out what you said, like what does it mean? Like what's the connection? The changelings want him really bad. We know that.
I mean, it could be. I feel like at this point, I almost have no guesses. I certainly have watched Fire Walk with Me now, and I can say what I think for certain that it's not the Black Lodge.
Okay, yeah.
And I was very disappointed when I watched that movie. So we can rule that out.
Oh, you didn't like the movie?
I was concerned about that. We can rule that out. No.
You didn't like it?
It was a rough watch.
Oh, wait, it is a rough watch. Oh, that's too bad. I think like Cheryl.
I think it's aged pretty poorly. What year it came out?
That's possible. Yeah, that's possibly true.
Yeah.
I think Cheryl Lee was robbed. That's the kind of thing that the Oscars would never honor. But she's just fantastic in that movie. Like that's her movie.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, I don't know. They keep saying "come home," so I don't know if home is the Great Link or what, but it could be. Speaking of characters and the productions that sort of center around them, I hate to say this because it's the kind of thing that a greasy chud on the internet would say, but I really like Captain Shaw. He's really, really growing on me, and taken for what it is, he probably should be the main character of this show, because we love Riker, we love Picard. They're going to go on their kind of shallow arcs where they go, am I the greatest? Yeah, I am actually the greatest. But like Shaw starts off as like a total functionary. I just want to drink my Malbec. Screw you. I don't want to do any of these things. And keeps getting all these old geezers come and keep pulling him into these adventures. And he's like, all right, fine. And by the end of this, he's going to be a total cowboy. Like he's going to be one of them. He's going to be a guy that just flies off and does whatever. He's like, yeah, this is the way to do it. And I just think that that's like a really interesting arc. I hope he doesn't get shot or die or something like that at the end of this.
He did. When he started to win me over is when he got hurt and like panic transferred the command to Riker.
Yeah,
I was like, all right.
Yeah, he's like, I got two.
Thinking a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna complain, but I've got these two luminaries here. It's like, okay, oh my legs.
Yeah,
you take it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have some Vicodin and chill out.
Riker. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. It's an interesting arc for him.
After being cranky, he's like, I don't care about you. I'm not doing what you say. And then he's like, oh my God, Riker, take the wheel.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like is what I would do too. Is be like, you can't tell me what to do. Oh my God, help me.
Take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it, I don't want it.
Yeah, he's pretty great. Let's talk about Worf. Worf is a Jedi now. Who knew? I think it's so interesting that having a Klingon, what's the solution to like the Klingon who was raised by humans and has these kind of two sides? And it's like, oh, he's, he finds, a sort of like peace in like the disciplines of war. That makes sense. But him just sort of kneeling down in the middle of a fight and meditating is like, okay, that's pretty Qui-Gon. That's a Qui-Gon move there. I can see that.
I was like, okay, what are we?
And they've paired him up with Han Solo. Raffi's Han Solo now. So we talk about the warzening of Trek. This is a pretty attractive warzening. I think that this two-hander works, kind of working in the background. I wish that they would sort of not focus more necessarily, but I wish they'd put more meat on it, because we know that they're looking for something, and they keep running into all these kind of nameless thugs on the Blade Runner planet, getting a lot of work out of that set.
The whole like Starfleet live chat thing is not really working for me.
When they just like call each other, or
the like faceless.
Oh, right. Mm.
Like, yeah, whoever's like in their handlers.
Mm-hmm.
like that's not really working for me. I was gonna say when you started talking, I was gonna say I certainly wish I knew what was going on, like
Well, yeah.
and not all of it, but just a little bit. I also were you maybe I'm just a clown. When she stabbed Worf, I was like, I can't believe they're gonna do this to me and to him. It was like he's gone.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't really believe it, but I don't know. It was just like I said, it was just a way because they did it, and we know that like Klingons have like two hearts, right, or like two livers or something. They've got multiple
Something.
organs, so I wasn't
They're
really
strong.
worried. But I thought
Yeah.
like my problem with it was it's not going to change anything. It's not going to advance anything. It's just a way to kill like a 5 minute scene. And I think
Yeah.
that Michael Dorn and Michelle Hurd, so long suffering. Like she deserves a lot more from this show. Like I think they value her because they've hung this whole thing on her, this side plot. But like nothing's going on in this side plot. Like either give them something cool or just get them on the Titan and get them back,
Yeah.
with everybody else. Um, but yeah, Worf like being dragged off and then coming back and throwing knives into guys, and then that's pretty cool. That's what we want from a Worf.
I mean, I love a Worf fight scene. Especially
Yeah,
with the swords. It's cool. It's fun.
yeah. And Dorn's so good at it. He's still got the moves. I love it.
All that
Um,
print juice.
I also love that there's just a safety protocols button in the holodeck. Safety protocol on, off, on. Just hit that button. We're good to go.
Guinan put that in there on purpose.
Yeah,
Guinan's like, in my program, there's gonna be a switch to flip.
yeah. We just
I'm gonna need to pull that thing.
sometimes I'm putting a bottle down. Whoops! I hit the switch. Unfortunately, yeah. But you that's the problem with and once again getting a lot of work out of the bar set, but pulling a gun on somebody in a holodeck, you have to make sure they know that there is danger here. What else? Can you think of anything else? Any other notes or things that you wanted to say? A lot happened
No,
in
I mean,
this
I feel
episode.
like, well, did you say a lot happened?
Yeah, I think. Well, it was both for an episode that is in the middle of the season and is obviously a transitional. They saved a couple things for this. It could have just been them talking and things kind of developing, but we had an entire character appear and disappear. Who I guess we should talk about her more. But yeah, I think a lot happened.
I guess I feel like this is one of those episodes where I'm like, a lot happened, but also not much happened. Where there's
Yeah,
action the whole time, like you said, Ro was in and then out, but I also feel like we haven't the only thing we learned was that Starfleet's infiltrated. I guess which maybe I'm making light of things, but I watched it and I was like, I don't know what I went to read articles talking about the episode right after I watched it because I was like, am I missing something? What happened today?
Oh, okay. Excuse me. I'm allergic to plot contrivance. Um, no, but there's the secret files in the earring. It's like, all right. I have a podcast called Just Enough Trope where we talk about often some of the things that keep showing up in movies and TV shows and stuff and why they do. And so you got to move the plot forward. You got to connect things. I get it, but if you just who you're sitting in a writer's room and you go, how did they get the secret files, and how does Worf know to call Picard? An earring.
Already
It's her
on.
earring. That's it. We got it. All right. High fives all around. It's like, well, what if it's kind of dumb. What if it wasn't that? And her death.
What if we didn't?
And her death too. Like she's first of all, she's Ro. She's a hero on the show. Like she's on the cast list, and she's been working for Starfleet Intelligence for 30 years. And two dildos just put a bomb on her shuttle and then beam away. And she's like, well, that's it.
Here I go.
So, I don't know. I think that what. I saw people, and I agree with this. I saw people being really surprised and impressed that they kept this a secret, and that's true. But we're obsessed with keeping things secret. What if you told people, Picard season 3, you got Picard, you got Worf, we got Geordi, we got Moriarty, we got Ro Laren. People would be super excited. When's she gonna show up? Maybe don't have her be a cursor on a screen, have a couple scenes with her and we feel like, oh, what's her part in this? And then she disappears.
An axer, yeah.
And it means more. When she gave Picard that earring, I'm like, TikTok. That's the end of her.
I kind of feel like I wish they would just start telling lies. I wish they'd be like, there's a holodeck episode where Picard fights King Kong.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And the Doctor from Voyager is gonna have a Batleth fight with Quark. You're gonna love it.
Yeah.
Just tell us everything we need to hear, and then we get what we get. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to talk about Jack Crusher. Being a super soldier. Jesus Christ! It's Jack Crusher. How can a 20-year-old do this much damage?
24.
Do you 24? That's right. They fixed that in the later script.
1 year younger than me.
Is there any other character? Is this something that we should know about? Are there any other characters who were like programmed to kill in TNG or another show? Sleeper soldiers. I guess Geordi was that one time.
God,
he got
Bucky Barnes.
Yeah. Who the hell is Bucky?
I think Sleeper Agent Angle. Maybe I should have thought about that. Maybe that's obvious. I should have thought about it during the episode. But I think that's a good guess. Yeah. I also was happy. I was happy that he at the end was like, "There's something wrong with me," to his mom, because I was like, if I have to wait 6 episodes of this kid with the War of the Worlds red vines growing behind him in the mirror every time.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that we're getting a little bit of a move on.
Yeah, that's good. It's also plus it's like he shot 4 people. They were the right 4 people, but they could have just as easily been the wrong 4 people. Yeah. So I did, in another show, like he would have like, I got to keep this a secret. I'm not going to tell anybody. I like the fact that he's like, Mom, I got to talk to you. I got a real problem. I got a shooting problem.
I feel like a green flag with like a male character is like, I like when a male character is like telling his mom stuff. Like I love like like Paul Atreides in Dune.
Oh yeah, sure.
Like on the Ornithopter, he's like, if I can just get them to untie my mom, she's gonna murder them and we're gonna be safe. Like I love that, especially with Crusher, who we know is like a badass.
That's it. Jack Crusher is the Kiswat Sadarak.
Oh no, that's what's his face. Oh my god. What's his name?
Which one?
What's the kid's name from the first season?
Oh, Data's kid?
No, the Vulcan that was raised by the nuns.
Oh, right. Elnor. The kid.
Oh my God,
Look, I mean, if we forget his name, it's probably their fault, right? It's not really our fault. Should be on the show more.
I'm gonna blame that one on the COVID brain fog.
He'll be yeah.
It's slow over here.
He'll be in the last episode. There'll be a big Lando's clapping Ewok party in the last episode, right? And they'll just bring everybody in.
I hope so.
I hope so too. And I hope that we get there, but I'm positive that we will. I think that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. And if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when new episodes are released. And you can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage or email us at EISTPOD@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show. Give us a rating and a review because it really does help us out. And if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on March 23rd for the 6th episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. I don't think that we have a title for that episode just yet. They're playing it a little close to the vest, but we'll be here next Thursday to cover it. We're going live once again at 8 p.m. Central, so join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTPOD to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about Star Trek Picard and remind people where they can find you online.
Thank you. Sure. My home podcast is called Generations Geek. We have something for everyone on there if you're a nerd. And my personal socials are always at Gondor Gold.
Yeah, follow Ella on Twitter. I'm at KA1IBAN on Twitter. And also, if you haven't subscribed to us here on Twitch, hit the bell and the heart icon so you get notified when we are live and broadcasting. And that is it for us. Thanks for listening, everybody. We are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.